Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Student Insight series. My name is Sam, and I'll be taking you through my journey today with environmental and marine science. So welcome to the UTS Student Insight series. We're delighted to continue this series on World Science Day, and I hope to inspire you towards a career in science or maths. As I said, my name is Sam, and I'll be taking you through my journey at UTS as a student studying marine and environmental science, and then now studying a Masters of Science where I research. I'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation. And just before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, upon whose ancestral lands our city campus now stand. I would also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, acknowledging them as the traditional custodians of knowledge for this land. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions at all during the webinar today, then please type them into the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel, and I'll do my best to try and answer any questions along the way. If you have a question that someone else has already asked and you would like it answered as well, then please use the upvoting tool, which is the little thumbs up symbol next to the question itself. Also, just being an online event, please do bear with us if there are any technical issues. We'll work to resolve them quickly. If you find you are not able to access the talk at any point, then please try logging back out and logging back in. Sometimes this is able to resolve the issue. And just one more bit of housekeeping. This session as well is being recorded, but we will not be recording any video or audio input from any of the audience. If you have any questions about the recording process, then please feel free to contact science.future@uts.edu.au. Okay, so just to give a little bit of background on on my pathway onto getting into UTS. So I grew up and went to school on the central coast of New South Wales, and I moved to Sydney when I started university. I was lucky enough to grow up really close to the ocean and basically spent my entire childhood snorkeling and diving and surfing and just being involved in the ocean, basically from early as I can remember. So sort of from this really young age, I've always had a really strong passion for conservation and particularly marine conservation. So my pathway to UTS, where I studied a degree of marine or environmental biology and also international studies. I kind of got there by studying the following subjects at school. So I did general maths, standard English, modern and ancient history, and also physics. So I wasn't 100% sure what subjects I wanted to do at school, but then when I did get to year 12, I realized that kind of biology was what I wanted to pursue when I went into university, and particularly marine science, because I was really interested and always have been in the ocean. So just a little bit about me and what I have done at UTS. So I've been at UTS for a little while now. I actually did a double degree when I came out of school. So my double degree was a Bachelor of Environmental Biology, and then I also did a Bachelor of Arts in International Studies with a German major. So completing both of these degrees then led me to do a postgraduate degree, which is a degree that you are able to complete after you have completed a bachelor's degree. So what I'm currently doing now is a master's degree that's focused on research in marine ecology and conservation. So one of the main reasons that I chose to go to UTS was actually going to the Open Day in 2013. It was coincidentally my 18th birthday as well when I went to the UTS Open Day, so I was pretty excited already. But when I got onto the campus, it just really kind of spoke to me. It was in such a great location, really close to Central, so it's super accessible kind of wherever you're coming from. Also, just talking to some of the academics and the course directors that were present at Open Day, they really kind of made it clear to me like the research impact and some of the things that you learn at UTS and how they might be sort of applied in the real world. Also, a big part of it was I managed to talk to an academic who actually studied the same degree that I ended up doing at UTS, including the international studies section, which was a big draw card for me, being able to do the science and then having the interdisciplinary approach of doing the international studies as well. Additionally, some of the available courses, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail in a moment, were really, really cool, and you get to do some pretty awesome things when you study environmental and marine science. So, as I mentioned, my degree was in environmental biology. Now, the difference between environmental biology and marine biology isn't a whole lot. There's just a few subjects throughout the course of degrees where some might be focused a little bit more on terrestrial or land-based biology and ecology, where there might be a few other subjects in the marine stream that are focused on the ocean, maybe looking at fish or coral reefs or something like that. So I originally selected the environmental biology stream, mostly because, as I mentioned, I've always had a really strong passion for ocean conservation. I'm very passionate about like animals and particularly fish. Some of the subjects that were available with this course I thought were really appealing and made me, really get excited about wanting to learn about environmental biology and marine biology. And also just being able to like find out about the real world applications of the subjects that were offered at UTS. So just to go through some of the, I guess, the highlights for me throughout the degree. And I think, most people who are starting environmental or marine science degree probably are already pretty fond of being outside in the outdoors. So for me, the most fun part of the degree was doing these field subjects. So field subjects are where basically you get to go out into, the bush or a research station. For example, this image here in the middle was a research station up in the Great Barrier Reef, which you get to go to. And you basically get to learn from academics and lecturers and tutors when you're actually in the field, out doing actual research and learning new techniques and stuff like that. So a bunch of different subjects that I've got listed down here on the bottom left, such as wildlife ecology, stream and lake assessment, marine communities, marine primary productivity and climate change. They were all subjects which have really great field components, quite often to different areas around New South Wales or even interstate. So the subject coral reef ecosystems, I think, is probably was the highlight of the degree, the marine science degree for me. And basically what that subject entails is you go up to the Great Barrier Reef for a week, and there's an island there called Heron Island. And you're basically on that island with about 30 or 40 other students, just depends how many are in your year. And it's an intensive course that runs for a week, and you just get to learn about coral reef ecosystems, how to manage coral reef ecosystems. You learn about like fish identification, coral identification, and all that sort of cool stuff. And it's really like intensive, and you get to get a lot of hands-on experience from professional researchers who run the course. Another great subject is fish biology and fisheries. This one was particularly interesting to me because I am very interested in fish in particular. That's kind of my thing. This was really for me to be able to learn a lot more about how fish and fisheries and conservation of different fish species actually works. So after completing all these subjects and finishing this degree, I graduated in 2018 with a double degree in environmental biology and also in international studies. So after I had graduated, then I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. And after having done that subject, which I mentioned up on the Great Barrier Reef, I got talking to some of the researchers one of the professors who was running the course, and he's now my supervisor for my master's project now. So as I mentioned, master's or an honours or a PhD is something you can do after you've completed your bachelor's degree. And I'm now close to completing that, where I focus on doing research in marine ecology. And the main reason I kind of wanted to do this was I thought that it would open up some opportunities into if I wanted to pursue further research opportunities, or maybe just open up some new job opportunities. So just to give a little bit of background on what I am now doing, that I've finished my bachelor's degree and now that I'm doing research. So my research focuses on the habitat associations and the ecology of these fish over here on the right. So these are called weedy sea dragons. They're pretty cool fish. They're unique. They're only found in Australia, so they're endemic to the southern waters of Australia. And yeah, as I mentioned when I got talking to my now supervisor, the professor at uni, he was able to tell me that there was a project available to start studying these pretty cool fish. And I thought, having always been so passionate about the ocean, I thought it was a great opportunity to help the conservation efforts of such an iconic and charismatic Australian marine species. So throughout my research degree, I've had some really great opportunities through UTS, which has been really amazing. Firstly, a big one when you're doing any sort of research is collaboration. So it's really, really important that you're able to work with other people, maybe at different locations as well. So I've been able to collaborate with some really great other researchers at UTS, but also at some government institutions and things like that as well. So I've been able to not only work on my project studying weedy sea dragons, but I've worked on projects helping restock endangered seahorse populations in Sydney Harbour. And we also monitor tropical vagrant fish that come down from the Great Barrier Reef and are now inhabiting these newly established coral beds off certain parts of Sydney. That's a photo on the bottom left there of some of the team out on a day sampling when we were looking for tropical fish that day. And then up in the middle was just a dive when we were working on the seahorses and we were just doing a bit of rubbish cleanup. Another great opportunity with research degrees is international conferences. So unfortunately, throughout most of my research candidature, I have been, having to deal with COVID and lockdowns and all that. So didn't get to go to international conferences in person, but they adapted them really well so that they were on Zoom, like many things. And I got to present at conferences that were based in China, which was really, really awesome to get to interact with internationally renowned researchers from China, Canada, the United States, Europe, pretty much all over the world, as well as plenty more through Australia and plenty of researchers from UTS as well. Also, I got to present at conferences within Australia, which was really great because Australia has really great marine science sort of just all around. So it was really awesome to be able to see some of the other research that's going around in Australia in the same field that I'm in at the moment. Another great opportunity with research degrees is academic tutoring. So I mentioned just before some of the subjects that I did as an undergrad at UTS while doing my marine science degree. And going into my master's, I was lucky enough to be able to go back and actually teach some of those degrees. So after having learned so much from all the academics who helped me along the way, I thought it was really cool to be able to go back and help to teach coming through. So I was lucky enough in my to teach that third year subject, which actually went up to the reef. So I got to there as a student. And then I think it was maybe 2 years later, I got to go back as a teacher, spend another week on the reef, which is awesome. But also got to help teach, students about coral reef conservation, coral reef biology, and just basically about coral reef ecosystems as a whole. So that was a really kind of unique opportunity, I thought. which I was afforded by studying at UTS. So a couple of tips for anyone who is interested in starting out as interested in getting into a marine science or environmental science degree. If you do get in, don't be afraid to ask questions. All the academics and tutors are there to help you. Like, having been a student and then a teacher, I know that a lot of students will sit there and everyone has the same question but might just be too afraid to ask it. Don't be. Everyone is more than happy to assist you in any questions you might have, and it's the best way to help you succeed, I think. Try and pursue, find what you're interested in, really go after that. There's a lot of different research happening at UTS and a lot of different subjects which are taught, and you're really able to kind of hone in on the specific things that you might be interested in and want to actually pursue. Make use of the UTS facilities. There's some really great things like the Super Lab. I had a photo of that earlier. And there's all these great new UTS facilities. We've got 4 new buildings, and then plus all the new labs and everything like that. It's really good. And one that's a little bit more specific to anyone who's really interested in marine science, I can't recommend enough upskilling in scuba diving. I started scuba diving throughout my bachelor's because I was kind of getting the idea that I might want to start trying to work in marine science. And it is a very, very useful skill. A lot of, obviously depending on what you're doing, but a lot of employers in the marine conservation sector are looking for people who can dive. So I highly recommend, if you're interested in marine science and you think you might want to end up pursuing it, you can't start diving too early. Okay, thank you for listening, guys. And just a reminder of how to ask any questions. Please type your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and I will try and get to them all now and answer any questions that you guys might have. So there's a couple of questions. The first one is, reads, what kind of work do you do while on a field trip? So great question. A little bit different depending on what sort of subject you do. So as I mentioned at the start, there's a bunch of subjects which are more focused on marine science, and there's some which are more focused on terrestrial or land-based science. So for example, in a land-based subject, wildlife ecology, you learn about different sampling techniques for monitoring plant communities. You also learn how to trap animals and things like that, which is particularly something you would do if you were maybe getting into something like environmental consulting as a job later on. You would need these skills that you learn whilst on these field trips. And then if you're doing marine things, you do get to spend a bit of time in the water with some of those later subjects like the coral reef one I mentioned. So you learn how to do things like fish censuses in the water. You learn how to identify fish or corals or seaweeds or other benthic invertebrates, anything that might be appropriate to what the subject outline is. Next question I have here is, do you need to be really smart to do a research project? I mean, not necessarily. I think rather than smarts, I think the important thing is finding something that you're passionate about. Like, if you can find a topic that you really are passionate about, then I don't think it's gonna matter as much, as long as you are willing to put in the hard work to deliver the outcomes that you need to. Then yeah, I think you'll be fine. How important, next question, sorry, is how important is environmental impact to your research? So that's a good question. can have different impacts on everyone's research. But for me specifically, the biggest impact that, or like environmental impacts, would probably be, climate change and ocean warming and things like that. So a big part of my research is looking at the distribution of weedy sea dragons and how that might change under climate change. So yeah, it definitely has a big impact on my research for sure. This is a really good question. Are there jobs besides research in marine biology? Yeah, absolutely. Um, I don't think I touched on too many of them, but there's a lot of jobs such as you could work at a zoo, you could work in an aquarium. A really big one is environmental consulting. You can get into research. You can work in marine science tourism, which is a really kind of booming industry at the moment, particularly in Queensland, anywhere on the Great Barrier Reef or something like that. Also around Sydney, there's a lot of opportunities to work as like a technician as well for any sort of institute in research. Another question here: how long does it take for you to start diving properly? I guess depends what you mean by properly, but you can do your dive course and be like diving, within the first day sort of thing. But if you want to do, when employers are looking for someone who can dive, there's a few more courses that you need to do along the way. So it takes a while to get there. There's probably like 3 or 4 courses that take a couple of days at a time, and you need a certain amount of dives to get to each one. So that's just why I recommend, if you are interested in it, there's no harm in starting early because it's a lifetime qualification. So if you're in like year 10 or something now and you want to start diving, and then you still have that qualification when you might be approaching looking for a job after you've finished your uni degree. Do you need HSC biology for an environmental major? I think it's recommended, yes, but I didn't have HSC biology. Not maybe would have been easier, I'm not sure. But I think, as I said before, if you're really passionate about it and you're happy to put in the hard work to learn the basic principles of biology and all that sort of stuff, then you can definitely get by, and you do get taught all of the things that you need to know. The academics are really helpful. The tutors are really helpful. They'll put in the work to make sure, as long as you're putting in the work on your end, they'll help to make sure that you've got everything you need to know. Another question here is, do you do much group work or is it mainly independent study? It's a bit of both. I don't know if I'd quite say 50-50, probably, but there is definitely a good mix of doing both. And I think group work is a really, really important part of being at uni. Having been on both sides of group work, helping people organise projects as a teacher, and then having to organise projects as a student as well, I think it teaches you really important skills of how to collaborate with other students, how to work with other people, and other things like that. So I think it's a bit of a mix of both. The independent study is really helpful for helping you be self-motivated and making sure that you can get the work done when you need to. What kind of subjects are there in the environmental biology major? Anything related to plants? Yes, lots and lots related to plants. I did kind of focus on the marine sort of stuff here because my thing is fish. But yeah, probably one of the really cool things about when you do the degree is everyone who's doing an environmental marine science degree is really passionate about the environment, and everyone kind of has their own little niche. So there's definitely plant people, there's fish people, there's bird people, there's mammal people, and talking to all those people, you get to learn a bunch of different stuff. They're going to maybe know more about you than certain plants, and you might know more about them, about certain birds or something. But there's subjects like biodiversity conservation is a good one where you learn a lot about plants. There's another one called ecology, which has a very plant-heavy focus. And there is definitely more, but like I said, I can't just try to remember them because I tend to focus on the marine ones. But yeah, there is a lot of really cool plant research that goes on at UTS. So if you're interested in that. there is plenty to do. Question here: how did you find to move to Sydney in your first year? So my first year, I actually commuted from Central Coast, which was pretty rough. But I then moved to Sydney at the beginning of my second year, and I loved it. I thought it was a great decision. It was a bit of an adjustment at first, having come from just a quiet town, but yeah, I think it was I'm very glad I did it now. Looking back, it was pretty good. One more question I've got here is: any advice for students worried about first year? It's a tricky one. Like uni can be daunting, but just don't be too scared of it. Just embrace it. As I said before, if you're doing any subjects, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to talk to other people. Everyone coming into first year is in the same boat. They want to get to know people. They want to have a great time at uni. They want to learn everything. That's the good thing about getting into uni is like anyone that you're meeting in the degree is like as passionate as you are about being that degree. So it's really really cool to be able to meet new people, and you can try and get through first year together. So that's just about all the questions I've got there, guys. So thanks for joining us. A recording of this talk will be sent to everyone who registered for the event and also made available on our website. And if you want any more information on the environmental and marine science courses, you can see the course info at science.uts.edu.au/future, and follow us on the socials at UTS Science. Thanks for listening.